Tom Selleck just broke his silence about Sam Elliott, and what he revealed has stunned fans of both men. For over 50 years, the two Western icons seemed inseparable on screen. Brothers in the Shadow Riders, kindred spirits in the rugged world of cowboy cinema. But behind the mustaches and quiet smiles, Hollywood insiders always whispered that their friendship was more complicated than it appeared. Because when one man's star rose faster than the others, the industry tried to turn loyalty into rivalry. Directors fought to cast them against each other, tabloids hinted at tension, and even producers wondered whether there was room for two leading men cut from the same Western cloth. Through it all, neither said a word, until now. When Tom Selleck finally revealed what he really felt about Sam Elliott, he didn't deny the rumors. He simply told the truth, a truth about respect, competition, and the kind of bond that outlasts fame itself. It began quietly, on a dusty television backlot in 1969. Lancer was just another weekly western, one of dozens trying to survive in the shadow of Gunsmoke and Bonanza. Yet in that single episode, Deathbait, two young unknowns would meet for the first time, and Hollywood would unknowingly capture the spark of something lasting. Tom Selleck was 24, clean-shaven, polite, still unsure if acting would even work out. Sam Elliott, 25, carried himself with the calm confidence of a man who already knew who he was. The episode's story was simple. A man has his horse stolen and crosses paths with strangers in a frontier town. Selleck played a drifter named Dolby. Elliott appeared later as Reno, a quiet figure with only a few lines. No one watching then could have guessed that this fleeting meeting would create one of television's most enduring friendships, and for a while one of its quietest rivalries. Between takes, crew members remembered the contrast: Tom all energy and questions, Sam reserved and deliberate. The two traded stories about struggling for work, both grateful simply to be on a set. In those early conversations, a pattern began. Selleck, the student eager to learn, and Elliott, the steady hand who already seemed carved from Western stone. But Hollywood doesn't nurture friendships, it tests them. Within a few short years, Elliott was booking consistent Western work while Selleck's career drifted through commercials and walk-on roles. Rumors later claimed that agents began comparing them. Same height, same voice range, same rugged appeal, and warning that there was only room for one cowboy with a mustache. Neither man said anything publicly, yet the seed of comparison was planted. When Selleck finally broke through in the late 70s, becoming the face of Magnum Pie, gossip columns called Elliott the actor who lost the role. It wasn't true. They were never in direct competition, but perception in Hollywood matters more than facts. Friends of both men said they could feel the tension. Two careers that had begun side by side now traveled very different roads. Still, there was no public falling out, no bitter quote, just silence and distance. Selleck never forgot those early days on Lancer. He often spoke about what he learned then, that authenticity mattered more than speed, that a man's word counted more than his fame. Elliott, for his part, would later mention that the Western code, honor, patience, and restraint, was not just something he played, it was how he lived. Even as the industry tried to pit them against each other, they remained bound by that same unspoken code. It was rivalry by rumor, not by heart. And though the tabloids would spend decades speculating, the truth was simpler. Two young actors had found in each other a reflection of what they most valued: honesty, grit, and quiet dignity. It was a bond that would survive casting wars, box office highs, and the kind of fame that changes almost everyone it touches. What Tom Selleck didn't know then was that his first day on that forgotten set would also be the day he met the man who'd shaped the way he saw the entire business. For Tom Selleck, that early bond with Sam Elliott meant more than friendship. It set a standard. Both men understood the unwritten rules of the Western world. You earn your place, you don't fake your skill, and you never lie for a role. That belief would be tested before Selleck's career ever truly began. When he first auditioned for Lancer, producers asked the question every Western hopeful dreaded: could he ride? Most actors lied. It was a common trick. Claim experience, learn later, hope the horse cooperated. But Selleck didn't. He told director Bob Totten the truth. He'd never ridden before, but he wasn't afraid to learn. It was a gamble that could have cost him the job. Yet Totten admired his honesty and hired him anyway. That choice defined how Selleck moved through Hollywood. While others bent the truth, he led with sincerity. And Elliott noticed. To a man like Sam, who valued quiet authenticity, that kind of courage said more than any resume. The episode finished shooting, the two parted ways, and the business moved on. But Totten's small act of faith, and Selleck's refusal to bluff, rippled through their careers. Elliott would later say that most actors survive on ambition alone. Selleck survived on character. Even in silence, their values mirrored each other. Still, honesty came at a cost. The early 70s were not kind to Selleck. He booked commercials, small television roles, and endured years of near misses. Elliott, meanwhile, landed steady Western parts, his slow drawl and stoic face becoming a familiar sight. Behind closed doors, studio executives compared them constantly. "Sam's the real cowboy," one casting director was overheard saying, "Tom's the one still trying to be." It wasn't cruelty, it was Hollywood logic. In an industry obsessed with image, Elliott fit the mold. Gravel voice, lean frame, natural in a saddle. Selleck was still too clean-cut, too polished, too polite for the rough world of Western grit. The comparison stung. Friends recalled that Selleck quietly pushed himself harder, determined to prove he wasn't just another pretty face. Then, in the late 70s, everything shifted. CBS launched Magnum PI and Selleck became a household name. The Hawaiian shirts replaced cowboy hats, but the charm remained the same. Suddenly, it was Sam who seemed left behind. For the first time, the quiet mentor found himself watching the student dominate every magazine cover in America. Hollywood noticed the reversal. Agents whispered that Elliott should chase the same spotlight. He didn't. While offers for glossy action roles came his way, Sam turned most down, preferring smaller, character-driven projects. Some saw it as stubbornness. Others called it pride. Selleck later called it wisdom. Through all of it, neither spoke publicly about the imbalance. There were no jealous interviews, no subtle jabs, only respect, even from afar. Still, industry rumors grew louder. That Elliott resented the fame Selleck found so suddenly, and that Tom felt guilty for surpassing his old friend. The truth, though, was quieter. Both men understood the cost of celebrity. One wore it, the other walked away from it. And yet, somewhere between those two choices, their bond held steady, built on the same integrity that first brought them together on that forgotten Western set. It would take more than time and distance to shake it. But the next time they reunited, in a dusty Civil War drama, the world would finally see what their loyalty looked like on screen. And for the first time, Hollywood saw not rivals but brothers. By the early 1980s, Tom Selleck and Sam Elliott were living in different worlds. One was the face of primetime television, the other a respected but quieter name in Western film. Fate, however, had one more card to play. When the television movie The Shadow Riders went into production in 1982, the casting team wanted two brothers who looked believable, carried real history, and could command the screen without trying to outshine each other. There was only one pair who fit that description. Selleck signed first. Elliott followed, knowing exactly what the public would say, that he was stepping into the shadow of the most famous mustache on television. But he didn't care. He wanted the work, the story, and the chance to share the frame with someone he trusted. From the moment filming began, that trust was tested daily. The film told the story of two brothers divided by the Civil War, one Union, one Confederate, who reunite when their sisters are kidnapped. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. On set, the press drew parallels between the characters and the actors, the outgoing Selleck as the charming older brother, the introspective Elliott as the one hardened by loss. Producers encouraged the comparison, hoping to fuel a bit of creative tension. Reporters asked which man was the real cowboy. Those questions could have turned the production sour, but both refused to take the bait. Elliott joked that Selleck looked better in a saddle, diffusing tension with a smile. Selleck returned the favor by insisting that no one delivered a line with more authority than Sam Elliott. Their respect for each other became the unspoken heartbeat of the film. Still, friction existed. Not personal, but professional. Selleck was coming off Magnum PI, and the studio leaned heavily on his name to promote the movie. Elliott, who had worked steadily but never with that level of visibility, found himself overlooked in interviews and posters. Crew members later recalled that he shrugged it off, but there were moments when the imbalance showed. During one night shoot, the director reportedly asked Selleck to take the emotional lead in a scene originally written for Elliott. Sam delivered the line anyway, perfectly, quietly, in one take, and the entire set applauded. The moment never made headlines, but it reminded everyone that charisma isn't the same as depth. Off camera, the two spent long evenings together after filming, sharing meals and old stories. Those who worked with them said their conversations always circled back to the same subject: how to stay decent in a business built on ego. Both had seen actors lose themselves chasing attention. Neither wanted to end up that way. When The Shadow Riders finally aired, critics praised their chemistry. They called it brotherly, instinctive, real. Viewers could sense it, the years of unspoken understanding behind every glance. And yet, even in celebration, the whispers continued. Some industry watchers claimed Elliott's measured performance had upstaged Selleck's charisma. Others argued that Selleck's popularity had kept the film alive. Neither man responded. They let the work speak. That silence became their language. Over the decades that followed, The Shadow Riders gained cult status, not because of its story, but because of the men who carried it. It wasn't a tale of heroes and villains anymore. It was a portrait of friendship, surviving the weight of fame. Hollywood had tried to turn competition into conflict, but the two actors refused to play the game. They had learned long ago that true loyalty isn't declared, it's proven when the cameras stop rolling. And by the end of that shoot, both knew that the bond formed on that dusty ranch in 1969 had only grown stronger, forged now in the glare of fame and tested by everything success can ruin. After The Shadow Riders, Hollywood once again separated them. Selleck returned to the rhythm of television fame. Elliott drifted toward the slower, harsher world of feature films. Both men had what the other secretly envied. Tom had visibility, wealth, and network stability. Sam had creative freedom and critical respect. Neither admitted it publicly, but those close to them could see how their paths reflected two halves of the same coin. The mid-'80s became a defining decade. Selleck turned Magnum PI into one of the biggest shows of its era. It made him an international star but also a prisoner of expectation. Studios wanted the same charm, the same smile, the same heroic tone. Elliott, meanwhile, appeared in Mask and Roadhouse, the gravel-voiced loner, who didn't chase the spotlight, but stole scenes by doing less. The industry drew its own conclusion. Tom was the crowd pleaser, Sam the craftsman. Behind the headlines, the two men kept in touch quietly. They sent handwritten notes, short phone calls, nothing public. It wasn't distance, it was respect. In an industry that sells friendship for headlines, theirs stayed private. That privacy fueled more speculation. Gossip columns suggested they'd fallen out over projects that overlapped, that Elliott had turned down a role similar to Quigley Down Under because of Selleck's version. There was no proof, just the usual studio chatter. Still, the story spread, feeding the myth of rivalry. The truth was simpler and more telling. Both men turned down dozens of roles that didn't fit their principles. Selleck refused projects that glorified violence. Elliott avoided scripts that mocked the Western tradition. They didn't copy each other. They mirrored each other's code. That moral backbone made them rare. And Hollywood didn't know what to do with rare. By the 90s, Selleck's fame mellowed into maturity. He played older, steadier characters, men who held families together and carried the weight of leadership. Elliott, with his weathered face and voice like dry timber, found renewed recognition as the embodiment of authenticity. He wasn't acting the West anymore, he was living it. Their careers had diverged completely, yet their reputations began to merge again. Fans saw them as twin symbols of the old-school man, grounded, loyal, and unwilling to play the Hollywood game. At award shows, the cameras often sought them out for reaction shots. The two men who never seemed to age in character, only in grace. When Elliott appeared in Tombstone, audiences compared him to Selleck's lawman roles, calling them reflections of one another. The resemblance was deeper than looks. Both performed from the same moral center. Yet success never erased the old comparisons. Even into the 2000s, articles still asked which of them was the true heir to the Western legacy. Some labeled Elliott the purist and Selleck the populist. But when asked, Selleck dismissed the idea entirely. "We've both carried the flag in our own way," he once said. One of the few verified lines he ever offered on the topic. It ended the debate without drama, exactly as he intended. Elliott responded, not with words, but through his choices. Every project he accepted, from The Hero to A Star Is Born, echoed the same humility. When he earned a Screen Actors Guild Award decades later, Selleck was among the first to send congratulations privately. No press release, no photo op. The rivalry that Hollywood imagined never truly existed. What did exist was endurance, a quiet, lifelong recognition that two men could walk different roads and still live by the same code. It was the kind of understanding the industry rarely rewards, but time always reveals. And as they both aged into legends, that unspoken code would come full circle, with Tom Selleck finally putting the truth into words. For decades, Tom Selleck avoided talking publicly about his friendship with Sam Elliott. He spoke about his shows, his family, his love of ranch life, but when interviewers mentioned Sam, he changed the subject. Fans assumed the silence meant distance. In truth, it was loyalty, a quiet promise to protect a friendship that had survived the one thing Hollywood rarely forgives: time. That changed when a reporter, during a Blue Bloods press interview, asked about the early days. The question was harmless. "Do you still keep in touch with Sam Elliott?" Selleck smiled, paused, and then said more than anyone expected. He explained that Elliott was one of the few men who never let fame distort him, that what people saw on screen was who he really was. He didn't dramatize it, he didn't rehearse it, he simply told the truth. The comments spread quickly through entertainment outlets, because it wasn't gossip, it was respect in its purest form. For years, the two had been painted as competitors. Now Selleck's own words stripped that story bare. He described Sam as the kind of man whose steadiness became an example during their early days, someone who made integrity look effortless. There was no apology in his tone, only admiration. Industry observers took notice. In an age of headlines built on betrayal, this was something different. A Hollywood legend acknowledging another without irony or envy. It reminded people that real loyalty isn't dramatic, it's consistent. Behind the scenes, Elliott responded in his usual understated way. He didn't comment publicly, but he made a point of calling Selleck to thank him. Crew members working with Sam on 1883 later confirmed that the call happened. He was grateful, one of them said. It meant something coming from Tom. Their renewed contact sparked a wave of reflection among fans. Forums lit up with clips from the Shadow Riders and old interviews from the 70s. Viewers noticed how little had changed between them. The same mannerisms, the same unspoken rhythm. It wasn't nostalgia, it was continuity. Even separated by decades, both men still carried the same quiet confidence that made westerns feel believable. But Selleck's revelation wasn't just about friendship, it was about identity. He admitted that during his rise to fame, he sometimes lost touch with the simpler values that had guided him at the start: patience, humility, gratitude. Elliott, he said, had never lost them. That recognition carried weight because it came from someone who had lived both extremes of the business. What made the moment powerful wasn't what Tom said, it was what he didn't. There were no tales of rivalry, no confessions of jealousy, just a truth spoken softly, that the man Hollywood once cast as his rival had been his compass all along. In a world built on reinvention, Selleck chose acknowledgement instead. Since that day, interviews featuring either man often circle back to the other. Elliott calls Selleck one of the last real gentlemen, a verified quote from a 2017 red carpet interview, and Tom continues to credit Sam with showing him how to navigate the business with grace. They still don't appear together often, but when they do, the camaraderie is effortless, like time never passed. Their story closes not with scandal, but with something rarer: mutual respect that endured every misunderstanding fame could create. Two men who began as strangers on a forgotten western set now stand as the last of their kind, proof that in an industry built on illusion, authenticity still matters. Across 6 decades, Tom Selleck and Sam Elliott built separate empires yet shared one foundation: honesty. They proved that fame doesn't have to erase integrity, and that friendship can survive even when the world insists on rivalry. Their connection wasn't forged in scandal, but in shared experience: two young men who walked onto a dusty western set and never stopped living by its code. In every role since, from lawmen to fathers to aging heroes, both carried that same quiet decency that made them stand apart. They didn't chase relevance, they embodied endurance. Hollywood changed, the audiences changed, but what they represented stayed constant, a kind of strength that doesn't need headlines to last. Today, when Tom Selleck speaks of Sam Elliott, he doesn't talk about fame or success or competition, he talks about respect. And for fans who grew up watching them both, that might be the most powerful revelation of all. For more emotional stories, check out this video.